I'm David S. Dawson from the Intellectual Podcast, a show that spotlights creatives from all walks of life. Part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other incredibly geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Hi, I'm Saladin Ahmed, and this is Capes on the Couch.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
We've got another Creators on the Couch episode, and in honor of the upcoming Storm series coming out by Marvel Comics, which I believe is going to drop the very day that this episode comes out, October 2nd, if I remember correctly, we have the wonderful Murewa Ayodele. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Very correctly. That's
okay. Excellent. I did my research. I looked it up online. I was like, I do not want to botch the pronunciation. I'm terrible with names. So, Mojo, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. And, given some of the time zone challenges, I know we had to make sure that we fit this in, crossing the Atlantic Ocean and talking to you many, many time zones away. So thank you for chatting with us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
So we're just going to get right into the questions because we've got quite a few of them, many of them from the fans, and I want to make sure we're respectful of everybody's time here. So first off, how did you get into writing comics, and what is the Nigerian comic scene like?
Okay, it's a little complicated to explain, but I was in final year in university studying computer science. And at that time, I was already getting fed up of school. Thinking back now, I'm not even sure why I had already just given up. The thing is, in Nigeria, in most places, there's the public university and then there's the private university. Government handles one and you pay for one. But for a long time, there weren't private university. It was just public university. That's where everybody recognized. So it was always free education. You get for everyone. It was getting to a stage where the government was running the universities pretty poorly and the staff were always going on strike after strike. So you would have courses that are supposed to last for 4 years and students would be studying that course for 10 years because the lecturers kept going on strike. So imagine a 4-year course lasting for 10 years. So then some institutions, especially religious organizations, now started their own universities where the promise is you go in for a 4-year course, you end in 4 years. Imagine that being the sales pitch, that if it's a 4-year course, you live in 4 years. So, and going to this university, for the first time ever, I felt rushed. Everything was always rushed. Like you get to school in a matter of like 3 weeks, you're like doing tests. In a matter of another 3 weeks, you're doing exams. Like the holidays are even usually longer than the amount of time we spend in school. So I was always feeling like, I didn't feel like I was learning at the pace that I could take all this information. So by 400 level, I had just given up. I wasn't going to classes anymore. My grades were slipping and everything. And I just said, you know what, I just want to, I just stayed in I still went to classes, but not as often. I said, okay, I just want to go back to what I remembered enjoying and loving the most. So, and I started talking to some friends that were in other departments that weren't as stressful as computer science. They gave me, anime to watch, comic books, pirated ones to, on laptops and stuff. And I just read them and stuff. And I fell in love with comics all over again. I fell in love with animation all over again. And I remember I used to write stories, short stories, when I was in secondary school, that was high school. So I was like, you know what? I want to start writing again. And I want to write stories about Batman and stuff. And Dr. Akonde, my best friend, who is also a comic book artist now with Marvel. So it was also we also study computer science at the same time. So I was like, you know what if I write these stories and you provide the artwork for them? And it was like, sorry, no, like I still want to graduate. Like I still want to have good grades. Like it seems you have given up on life, but please, I don't waste my parents' money. Like I absolutely assumed I was going to fail my final year. And my parents, if I failed, my parents were not rich enough to pay for an extra year. So I was already ready to drop out. Like, oh, I was going to fail my final year and I was going to drop out. That was like, I had concluded, but luckily I passed for some reason. I think they pitied my F and they gave me an E or something. So, but that's how I got rekindled into the love of comics again. And I just started writing, even though there was no artist to draw them. So, but I was writing them in prose form. So I was writing. So when we graduated, I continued to communicate with Dotun, and then he would. So I published a novel first called, I think, Messiahs from Hell or something. So where he drew the cover and the chapter pages, but it was mostly prose. So gradually, I was like, oh, why don't we? I discovered some comic book companies in Nigeria. The most popular one, Vortex Comics. It was like the Marvel of Nigerian comics then, while Comic Republic was like the DC. And they had this bitter rivalry and everything. They hated each other, like way more intensely than Marvel DC. So I was with Vortex, but it didn't really work out. So I had to start my own company, like the Image Comics kind of thing, with Dotun. And I would do the scripting, he would do the work, he would do the artwork. And because we study computer science, we were running the website ourselves and all the stuff. And we didn't have the confidence to ask people to pay for our comics, were free comics. That was what Vortex was doing. That was what Comic Republic was doing. So we wanted to be free comics too. So we had problem monetizing, and we were getting consistent views. So let's say we had 1,000 followership. They were coming every month regularly. It was not dropping, but it wasn't also increasing. It wasn't increasing at a fast rate. And we didn't know how to monetize it. And for some reason, every other person in the industry had beef with us. For example, Dotun's art style is so digitally painted in a weird way that people thought he stole artwork because of how well rendered it was. Everybody tries to, when you draw digitally, everybody still tries to draw their artwork to look like it was drawn on paper. You still see it now, even people that draw digital, they still try to make it look like it was drawn on paper. But Dotun doesn't try to do that. Dotun draws it like, this is a digital artwork. Let's make it look as close to a movie as it can, or something like that, So we didn't get the recognition. There was always like, if there was a category called Best Sci-Fi for awards, and for some weird reason, we were the only ones that published sci-fi that year, they would cancel that award. We were trying to do like diversity in comics where, sometimes we might have a comic that maybe it's set in the future and there are people of different races there. Maybe that was the year they would say, oh, all the books must have all Black cast. And it's like, I don't know if it was coincidence, I don't know if it was planned, I don't know if sometimes I think we went to a Comic-Con to table. We were put in a table where we're like in this dark corner that people couldn't find us, after paying good money. So it was just constant rejections and feeling undermined and stuff. So we're like, you know what? If we're going to be treated this badly in our country, you know what? We're going to try getting into another country. So we started sending out proposals and pitches to companies in the United States and in the UK. So we got a couple of yeses, and the first one was by Action Lab. And from there, we're doing more and more. We did some things with Webtoons, but that one was for free stuff. For the project we did on Webtoons, Tom Brevoort from Marvel read it and loved it. And that's how we got the gig to work on Moon Knight. So it was a bunch of free comics, getting our hearts broken by the industry in Nigeria. Action Lab having the scandal they had about, stealing money from creators and all those stuff. all those long journey till we eventually found our way to Tom Brevoort that gave us the chance, like, you know what? And our first work, which was like this mega big reward, our first work, Moon Knight, was going to be on the same book with Jonathan Hickman. So it was like the biggest shout out we could get, you know, having your, like, after you're done reading Hickman's story, our story was the next. So that was like, so it's really helped our exposure and everything. So that was like, that's the long journey of going from being frustrated in school to being frustrated in the comic book industry and so many things. There are a lot of other long stories that I forgot to mention. I was also working and I had to resign and go back to live with my parents. So it was like a whole long journey of serious frustration before we got it into Marvel.
Yeah. That's a cinematic story in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
That's an amazing story of struggle and eventual triumph. That's incredible. Discrimination, all of it. I mean,
yeah, this story has everything. This story has everything. Rejection, racism, comic books. Wow. Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. So yeah, so segueing then into the Moon Knight, Black, White, and Blood story. And yes, I did read that, you know, and to your point, I mean, if you're following a story, you know, written by Jonathan Hickman, and I think Chris Bachalo did the artwork. So yes. Like, I mean, you want to talk about bringing their A game, and then yeah, you know, and I'm not saying that in like a negative way, but like you got two of the best, the top name creators in comics, and they do this short story in this anthology work, and then you guys making your Marvel debut. Like, okay, so, I guess you got to step it up, and you did. I mean, if you haven't read it, it is a hilarious short about Moon Knight and Spider-Man and Egyptian stuff. And Spidey coming to Moon Knight and asking for a favor, and all of the inherent Spidey quips, and Moon Knight just not having it at all with Spidey. He's like, fine. Where did you come up with that idea? What was the pitch process like to Tom and to the Marvel staff? I've gotten some criticisms where I'm happy to like wear it as a badge of honor. Even as early as that project, people say I write comics like a comic stand. The Moon Knight memes of that period, oh, let's get this bread, you know, and the Moon Knight meme of him asking Dracula for his money and all those kind of things. That was the voice that we're using for Moon Knight, basically, and that was the kind of humor we're going for. So I think no ketamine references, but you know, I'm a huge Moon Knight fan. That is like one of my all-time favorite characters. So I am well versed in all of the memes about Dracula and let's get this bread and ketamine and stuff. Yes, so I'm right there with you. So yeah, so those were on our minds when we're pitching that story. We loved the Warren Ellis run, and we were really upset, like especially when the bone armor. We're like, this armor is so freaking cool. Why hasn't any creator done anything with this armor? You know, and even including the current Moon Knight run at the time, nothing was done with that armor as good as it was. Like, bring it back. So we're like, you know what? We're going to do something with that armor. There's nothing you tell us, you know. So we're going to use all three costumes. His Moon Knight suit, his Mr. Knight suit, and the bone armor. So we just wanted to put everything that we loved about Moon Knight, basically writing the story like a fan. We're going to put everything in that story. I just going to make it a very fun, lively story. Dotun's favorite character in the whole wide world is Spider-Man. So we're like, you know what? You're going to get to draw Spider-Man. And we wanted to play around with the medium. One thing about Black, White, and one of the issues we had in the industry before we even got to Marvel is because we always have these strong, weird opinions that people don't have, and we're always trying to express it. You know, one of the issues we have with Black, White, and Blood sometimes is because it feels like incomplete artwork. Like, are you trying to chip out on the work? Is that why it's not colored? So we made up our mind that
even though it's going to be black, white, and blood, everything is still going to be like fully rendered. And if you read that story, you would forget you're reading a black and white comic because everything is still properly shaded. We even got some people saying that, oh, we cheated, like we colored this thing. We're like, it's not colored, it's black, white, and but everything is still properly like rendered. We decided to use characters that their costumes only have that color. Spider-Man has costumes that are just black and red and white. So those were the costumes we decided to use. Moon Knight's costumes are just black and white.
Yeah.
And Deadpool too is black, white, and red. So we decided to use all those kind of characters. So we're playing around with that. If you take a screenshot, you will still think this is just a regular Marvel book and not think it's a black, white, and red. So we just put everything we could into this story. We weren't sure how. This was the first time we were scripting for somebody for another editor to read before Dotun, because normally my scripts just go straight to Dotun. So we didn't know if we were writing nonsense or anything. So we sent it, and then I was scared that maybe some people might not like it. So I think I sent another proposal. I think it was supposed to be a Moon Knight story set in the world of Old Man Logan, where because Khonshu can keep bringing him back, he keeps bringing it back, and I think he has to face Apocalypse and his children or something. It was a badass story, with lots of fight and stuff, but Tom Brevers rightfully said, go with the fun one. It's going to be more memorable. So we decided to go with the fun one, and Dotun drew the shit out of it. It was lovely. Yeah. We drew Anubis with dreads, like the Migos. We just went all out with everything. And the scary part about that project also is when we started working on the project, Marvel had to tell us to stop. And the reason is when we wanted to sign the contracts, there's this form we're supposed to sign because we're working from Nigeria. And our country did not have a business treaty with the US. So we couldn't do it. So, and if Marvel can't pay us, if we can't sign that contract, so there'll be that issue. So like, if we can't pay you, then you can't do the work. So we had to now relate. So till now we relate to Marvel as an entity because we have a company. So Marvel relates through that entity, not directly to us. So it was also scary. So we're like, if they come back and they say, oh, we checked it, you still can't do that, we have to take care of this project or something. Like, if this is going to be our final Marvel project, it has to be like the best thing ever. So we went all out, the coloring, everything, full spread pages. So yeah, it was some of the most fun we've had working on any project, Marvel or creator owned. So we like that project. And so now we still enjoy working with Tom Brevers because one thing I like about Tom Brevers is that of all the editors we worked with, he kind of gives you liberty to like do your thing.
Yeah. I have to admit, I am engrossed in this interview. This is amazing because you said something so powerful. You said that you were writing as a comic fan, and I'll put it this way, not everybody does it that way. So
yes,
that's definitely appreciated because I know Anthony right now is incredibly digging the fact that you did Moon Knight. And, because I'm going to take this opportunity then. I'm going to segue in because you did I Am Iron Man. And Iron Man is definitely, that's my jam. That is my, one of my favorites for sure. And this touched me. I'm serious, man. I really appreciate the effort you put into this. So regarding like the particular stories and picking the eras and everything, what was your mindset with that? Like, how did you come up with that whole construct?
Okay, so after we finished the Moon Knight project, that was the end of that. So there was like, yeah, you're done. Like, they don't tell you you're done. You just know you're done. So, and as I still continue to be, I because Tom Brewer can be this very quiet person, I sometimes forget that he's like the second in the command kind of person at Marvel. So I still like shoot emails at him. So I was like, I have like this Iron Man pitch. I've had on my laptop since like, I love there are some of characters I love so much, even though I never dreamed of like working at Marvel, that I've typed them and I've saved them on the cloud. So I was like, yeah, I have like this pitch about Iron Man. I think the title was The Untold Tales of Iron Man, where where we tell stories that Iron Man has never shared for one reason or the other. Either it's something that is incredibly sad, incredibly embarrassing, a big failure, or something. It's untold tales. And we get to see him, because one of the things I love about Iron Man, both the movie and the comics, is he has different armors. We're going to feature different armors in different eras and this thing, and, I saw him on the pitch and I was like, firstly, at Marvel, anything that starts with the untold tales never sells. So yeah. So that's going to be first. That's going to be the first thing. Second thing is Iron Man is going to be 60 next year. Let me see what I can do. So I guess he was going to talk with C.B. Sobolski and see if it was possible. So trying out this guy that just came into Marvel on this mini series, like that was incredible faith. So, and it got us the work. But he said before we can work on that project, he wants to test us out. So he said we should tell a 10-page Iron Man short story that the Cantwell's run is going to end at Iron Man issue 25. If you can tell a short story that will be featured at the back, if it's fire, we'll move ahead with it. And then at the end of that project, we'll advertise that project. And that story featured Iron Man and Thor during Jason Aaron's run on Worthy Thor. So the story is titled Daddy's Boys. So it's this grand story of Iron Man finding himself in Jotunheim. So that was the project that knocked the door for Iron Man. And we just had fun going back in time. The story was written in reverse, actually. We started writing in the current era first. That episode was titled I Am Iron Man. And I was like, you have your title. That's the title of the series. They're like, oh, yeah, that's true. So that's when I titled the series I Am Iron Man. And then we started going back in time. Issue 4 was supposed to be in the Matt Fraction era. And he was supposed to travel to an alternate dimension where he meets a cyberpunk Reed Richards. But Tom Brewer said, yeah, keep that for another time. You might get to use it another time. So we decided to go with Director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Iron Man for issue 4. Then issue 3, I loved Bendis' Iron Man. There was a time that Bendis used the samurai swords. Like, I want to bring back the samurai swords, but we're in the 90s. And those kind of kung fu movies and stuff are also running in the 90s. X-Men was very popular in the 90s. It's villain. So I want to bring Mojo in. And, I want to use his armor then. So we played around with that. Then started going back into the 60s and then one basically. So we were just having fun with all our favorite armors, trying to put as many of them as possible, including the Endosim suit by Tom Taylor, just everything. Like you said, we were writing it like fans, making fun of the transistor thing. Like, oh yeah, everything is powered by transistors.
Yep.
So, and the people that loved the stories the most were Iron Man fans, which made us very, very happy. So
absolutely. I can't say more than that. That's very true. So I definitely appreciated that. And actually I never take credit for things I didn't do. So Anthony has some notes here and he's right, because I did read these. So
yeah, I read them last night, because I wanted to get up to speed. I didn't, admittedly read them when they first came out, but I was like, okay, I want to make sure I have a basis of understanding. And I read the first 2 and I love them. I get to issue 3 and I'm laughing my ass off with the Mojo stuff and just the jokes. And we did a whole episode on Mojo.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a great character. And so I'm like, okay, cool. And I think I know where this episode, where this particular issue is going. And then it gets to the end and it takes a turn
Yeah.
And I go from laughing my ass off, and then, the last couple pages, now I'm sitting at my desk and I'm crying over everything with his mother. So damn you for swerving me like that, but also thank you for putting that in there. And it's the sign of a fantastic writer. And, and I give full credit to you and Dotun as well for that, to go from making me, laugh and making me think the story is going one particular way, and then just taking that hard turn and the emotional resonance and the connection that I had with it and everything. And like I said, I was just sitting there, crying at my desk. Like, I thought this was going to be funny. Why am I feeling things? So full credit to you, for pulling that off. And then the other one in issue 4 is Dexter's Laboratory. I saw those references and I was just like, you are amazing for pulling that, it's like DD, code like DXTR, whatever like that. And it's like, I hear the theme song in my head and he's welcome to my laboratory. Like I'm seeing this and I was just like, oh, yes. So you are, I put in the notes, I was like, Dexter's Lab reference in number 4, you are amazing, in all caps. Just beautiful. So fantastic work on that series as a whole. All five issues, just from start to finish. Highly, highly recommend. If you haven't had an opportunity, go ahead and check it out on Marvel Unlimited. Just, no real questions other than just say, very well done. Very well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm a big fan of Iron Man. Like, he's my favorite fictional character of like all time. I love him so much. And one of the reasons why it's easy for me to also be able to like relate to him is because I was born with an heart condition. So all the symptoms that you see in like classic Iron Man stories that people make fun of, like, oh yeah, he gets tired and he just faints and all those stuff. Like I had all those symptoms in like real life and all those stuff. And when my parents couldn't afford it, my parents were not like rich at the time. Were not even comfortable at the time. So it was like government funded stuff. So it was my mom that had to like follow me to do a surgery, a government sponsored trip to Israel to do the surgery, to like, it's an heart surgery and stuff like that. So I know that experience of like the old mother-son thing when you're a sickly child. So it's something that came into play in writing issue 2 and issue 3 most especially. So I'm happy that people are able to also resonate with that, especially. If you read it in floppies, there were letters I put at the end of each issue, especially issue 2. Issue 2 were dedicated to kids that, were always visiting the hospital frequently. So I'm happy a lot of people were able to connect that way as well.
Absolutely. Great stuff. So moving on to Akogun, Brutalizer of Gods.
Yeah.
First off, one of the most badass titles I've ever heard in my life. Just the title alone, Brutalizer of Gods. I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about the story, but I'm in. Like, just from title. And then the imagery on the covers that I saw, because again, full disclosure, I haven't had an opportunity to read the story yet, but I certainly will be picking up the trade. I know the 3 kind of oversized issues, and they're going to be compiled into a trade that's going to come out Oni Press early next year. So I've already placed the pre-order for that. So I was doing a little bit of reading because, like I said, I couldn't read the book itself. So I was doing some research on it. Yoruba, is that Yoruba?
Yes.
Okay. The mythology is fascinating. And the whole concept, not really spoilers, I suppose, is that, the world is created by a drunken god.
Yeah.
And he creates humans and he also creates monsters.
Yes.
Because this is, this is what gods do. That is fascinating. Just again, conceptually, what inspired that combination of Western ideas and storytelling with the African roots and mythology? Because I just want to know how that came about.
We were done with I Am Iron Man and there was like no project at hand. And we were worried. We were like, oh my God, I Am Iron Man must have done so poorly. Like nobody wants to like touch us with a 10-foot pole. Like no one wants to work with us anymore. Like, oh, it's like we're done. We're done. We are failures, But few months later, Oni Press reaches out to us and said, that same book, I Am Iron Man, they read it and they would like to work with us. And I'm like, okay, so it's not a complete failure. Okay. Later, we started hearing more and more good things about the project, by the way. So, and they said before they ask us like to pitch to them, they would like to suggest a project to us. Like they want something like Conan the Barbarian, but with an African flavor. And we're like, say no more. Like, we got you. So, and that was where all that came from. And we had to like go back and do some major research. Number one with that, if you wanted to do like a barbarian story from Yoruba mythology, the person was not going to be a warrior. In Western civilizations, when it comes to the adventurer is usually a knight, a warrior. But in our side of the globe, the adventurer is usually a hunter. Is the hunt. Warriors are usually like, they usually stay with the king, with the generals. They don't move around as much. You are there to protect the village, the city, the castle. So it's the hunter that actually gets to explore from city and villages. And they're the ones that come back with weird stories of, oh yeah, in this dark forest, I saw this terrible monster, So we knew the person was going to be a hunter. And I love story about gods. I love that crazy display of power and the corruption. And so I knew I wanted to bring Yoruba mythology into it. And the two fascinating stories I got were, number one was, of all the gods, the first god to discover Earth was the god of war.
Mm.
And when it comes to mythology says a lot about cultures. So I kept thinking, why would the Yoruba culture say the first god to discover us, to find us, is the god of war? Why? It's something that I kept thinking. And then another story was, oh yeah, the first god to come to Earth was the drunken god, Obatala. And I was like, okay, what if they're not two separate stories? What if they're the same story? And then I tried to fuse them. The drunken god came first. The war god was sent to fetch him, and then we start cooking. So that's where the story came from.
Wow. Oh my. I'm one of those people that always gets fascinated because of psychiatry and psychology. I recognize that mythology, you said it very well, mythology is how humanity interprets things that they want to know more about or they don't understand.
Mm.
And so for you to point out that the combination of the idea that nothing is perfect, even at the God level, and that sometimes when things go out of control, you need to lay the smack down. That's an amazing route. Yeah.
Yeah. And the two gods are basically in these stories, basically represent chaos. Mm-hmm. When you think of war, you think of chaos. Mm-hmm. And when you think of a drunken god, a drunken creator, you're also thinking of chaos. So you can see these elements of chaos. And yet, the drunken god is also said to be one of the wisest gods. So, you're thinking about order through chaos, chaos through order, so, and that's kind of what we play around with in the story, the sense of divine destiny through chaos, how despite how all these stories clash, how atoms clash, everything, there's still destiny for us all, It's cooler when it's in the pages of the story. So, but yeah, that's basically what we play around with, this two chaotic entities clashing together to birth our story.
Well, I love just, again, the concept of it, and hearing you describe it just, again, makes me want it. I'm like, why can't I have it now? Like, why do I have to wait until February to get, God damn it, I want it now. But what I will be able to get now, so, I suppose I can wait, and I'll satiate my hunger for those stories with Storm. Let's get to the crux of this. Storm. So first question is, how much of the recent X books do you have to know about to pick this one up? Because I understand this is the Rise from the Ashes, and this is the post-Krakoan era. Full disclosure, and longtime fans of the show know I'm not I'm not the biggest X fan. It's nothing against the characters or anything. It's just not,
there's only so much we all can read.
Yeah, there's only so much I can read, and I don't have anything against the characters except Scott is a dick. Sorry, I had to say it's a running joke on the show.
That's a long-standing joke.
That's a long-standing running joke that Scott Summers is a dick. But so I guess first off, how much of the recent stuff do you have to have read to understand, the new Storm series?
0.
Okay. Well, that's
Just
there you go.
just pick up Storm 1 and you're good.
okay. All right. Well, so moving on then, Aurora is such a wonderful and fascinating and complex character, and has been for however long it is. I forget exactly when it is that Giant X-Men #1 or whenever it was that 1971 or something like that. How do you, as a writer, decide which parts of her to focus on? Because there's so much to pull from to do justice. So where do you go? Well, I want to focus on this part of her. I want to focus on that part of her. I mean, it's got to be difficult, I imagine.
Yeah, that's a very strange thing. I don't know if the universe loves me or if it hates me. When I was writing I Am Iron Man, Dr. and I were always talking on, I wonder if Marvel will come back to tell us if we work on that project. And he always told me that, he thinks the next project they will bring will probably be X related. And I always told him, God forbid, please don't even joke with stuff like that. Please don't let them bring any X projects or Spider-Man projects. Please, I don't want it. And one of the reasons why I said I don't want it is because those franchises are so, allow me to use the word LD, that they always have something published about them. And not just one book, not just 2 books, multiple books. How the hell do you do research for that? Iron Man has been extant for 60 years. Yet doing research was almost easy. Just read 10 books in this era, 10 here, 10 here, 10 here. You can just read 60 issues of books and you're good. Just 10 per era and you're good. You can even read maybe 5 issues per era and you kind of get an idea of the whole thing. But all these books and different intricacies that happen, and they are so tightly connected to every character, and I'm like, So yes, I can understand what you're saying about trying to tackle Storm thing, and I was like, man. So doing research was grueling, was because I was like, okay, there's the Krakoa era where I've been following Storm's story in the Krakoa era, but I'm not following all the books in the Krakoa era. And something about the Krakoa era is that even if you are reading X-Men from issue 1, all of a sudden you get to issue 15, you're like, wait, what just happened? And then you're like, oh yeah, something happened in Excalibur. You're like, no, I'm not reading. I didn't read Sins of Sinister, and suddenly I'm seeing Mother Righteous, and I wouldn't even know who that is if I wasn't watching some of this YouTube stuff. I'm like, dude, I've not seen this character since issue 1. I've been reading this series judiciously. I've not missed any issue. Why am I seeing this character suddenly and it's supposed to be a big deal? So who knows what have happened to Storm in one of the issues I've not read, because everything is just freaking linked, So I was just so worried, and all the Chris Claremont stuff, dude, where do I even start from? And then there are the Storm solos and so many things. And yeah, and she was a member of the Fantastic Four, so you have to read Fantastic Four stuff too. Even just a fandom page, scrolling through the Marvel fandom page, it's so much stuff. I'm like, Iron Man's one is not even this much. And it's been around for 60 years, way longer than this. And I'm like, oh, geez. But what I discovered was I just decided to go with the things I find most interesting to me, the things I found most fun to me, the things I found most exciting to me. And some came from Fantastic Four, some came from a solo series, some came from X-Women by Chris Claremont and Milo Manara, because it's a sexy book, different stuff. And I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, I think I have enough to at least plot the first 5 issues to kind of have somewhere to start. So I had to just go with, what did I find the most interesting? Even if that involved, do I give her a big freaking sword by issue 4 or something. Yeah, stuff like that. So that's what's been my guiding force, the cool factor.
So, okay, so I'll jump in once again, going with Anthony's guidebook, but because of what you just said, I'm going a little out of order. So what would you consider to be your favorite traits about her favorite characterizations, and what are things that, you're not as big a fan of when it comes to Storm?
Sometimes I don't know the things to attribute to, like the writer writing the character and character themselves.
Yeah.
There's some things that you see as bad traits where like, is it the character or is it the writers that write? Because, I think there was a time she was talking about a weatherman broke up with her. So she ruined the man's career.
Oh.
So that kind of made her come off as vindictive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in some stories, I'm cool with being rebellious, but sometimes she can be, as written by some writers, unreasonably so. Like, there's no reason for you to be this combative. There's no reason for us to be fighting in this particular scenario. There's no reason why you should be saying no and, stuff like that. And in a lot of stories, they've written her fighting Iron Man, which I don't like, as an Iron Man fan. So.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So yeah, but when it comes to things I like about her is when it comes to a lot of female warrior tropes, and even in the real world, when you are fighting in a man's world where you have to be strong, usually you tend to overcompensate in the sense that, you are now even almost more violent than even the male counterparts. You are more vicious. You tend to say that. But the thing about Storm is, while she can be that, she can still be soft. She doesn't lose her femininity, and it's very difficult if you consider her background. Like, she grew up in the streets, she's gone through hard times, and yet she's still the most proud. Like, if you've grown on the streets to this level, you should not have this much confidence. You get, so you should not have this much compassion. So that means there's this level of those experiences, she did not allow it to shape who she is. So despite growing up poor, I would not see myself as poor. Despite the fact that I'm this brave warrior, I will not lose my femininity, and that's kind of what I liked most about her, and also enjoying most about writing her as a character.
Very well said. And I do think that, to your earlier point that, yes, when a lot of writers think that, I have to write a strong female character, that she has to be rooted in those masculine tropes, but, with a feminine presentation. And that is to the point that it almost becomes caricature to say strong female or a strong woman is not always just about the physical strength, or a strong woman is not just a woman that can fight you just as hard as a man. Like, yes, that is physical strength, but there's other ways to show strength. And I do think that Storm can be one of those characters, and, in the hands of skilled writers, definitely has that opportunity to do that. So I really appreciate bringing that up.
I think the thing is to be the devil's advocate. I don't think the other writers are not particularly unskilled. I think it's a matter of, if you also consider what the superhero occupation is. Now, we live in the real world. We see various types of women. And we're like, when women show strength, they show strength in different ways and in different areas. We've seen them. So, but when you're writing stories about, let's say, a female superhero that's as like She-Hulk or whatever have you, I can see that maybe you're writing stories about female cops, female firefighters, and imagine watching movies about female police officers and stuff. You will start thinking that maybe the writers are not creative, because there will be some character traits that would seem like they are being repeated, but it might just be a situation of the occupation. Just like, for example, when you see the grizzled old detective, the grizzled old male detective, it's something that we see every single time. It's anybody that uses that character, I don't think it's not that you're not creative, but it's like when you've been investigating sinister crimes for so many years, you become jaded. And that happens to human beings. That's just the reality of things. So I think when it becomes more apparent is maybe on teams, or when on books like maybe the Avengers and stuff, where maybe you now use characters like that and you now have them all together. For example, if instead of like, if there's Captain Marvel and let's say someone even I know is DC and like Catwoman, then you start seeing way more differences. But if you have maybe a character like Pylavel and then Captain Marvel and then Gamora, it starts feeling like you start seeing too many similar things because they're kind of characters cut from the same cloth. It's like if you have, I don't know, there's some characters that are similar to Iron Man, but if you start having them too much on your team, it starts becoming, like let's say you have Iron Man, Black Panther, and some other shady geniuses on your team. It starts being like, you guys are all just dicks. That's what you have in like Illuminati. On the Illuminati is like, wait, what's the point?
Yes.
All of you are
Yes.
just assholes at this point.
Yep.
Like, are you heroes anymore?
Which pretty much is the point of Illuminati. It's to make the idea like, yeah, this is why this is a bad idea. We shouldn't do this all the time.
Yeah, because you just have like all these characters similarly yet. So imagine you do that to female heroes too that are like of the same type and you just group them together and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So another question that I wanted to ask is, how are you honoring her Kenyan heritage? Because I don't presume to assume that just because she's from Africa and you're from Africa that you necessarily, but you're Nigerian and she's from Kenya, that, and she grew up on the streets of Cairo. I know that, so she's kind of been a very well-traveled character, but I don't presume, like I'm from New Jersey, I'm a guy from New Jersey. I wouldn't know what it's like to be a woman from Kansas kind of deal, even though technically we're both American, we're on the same continent, but there are, a drastic number of differences. So I just wonder, what are some of the ways, in which her Kenyan heritage is part of the book and part of the characterization?
Yeah, it's something I think when Tom River reached out to me, like when he first read, like initially when he wanted us to work on Moon Knight, when he asked characters that we liked, I mentioned Storm too. And one of the reasons was because she's African. And I always said, I think I would be good at writing an African character. I think Ah and Shuri were the characters I listed. And it's getting to write the heritage for Storm is a little bit complicated. There are some visual aspects, there are some emotional aspects, different things. It's all complicated. For example, the visual aspects. I love African prints. Over here we call them Ankara. African prints. If you've seen some of our stories, we tend to put them on African characters. But if you are a colorist, you will know they are very difficult to pull off. That's why in most comics, most characters wear plain shirts, plain gowns. There's hardly any serious patterns on them. So there's that part that I'm still trying to work with colorists, see how much we can put that into our fashion, because Lucas and I are working on the fashion full time. So you're going to see how express ourselves with our clothes and everything. So, but in the colors, we're also still trying to see how we can put all those African prints, African patterns. So we're seeing it in how she expresses herself, seeing that she's someone that's, like you said, she's well-traveled. She's lived in the US, both childhood and adulthood, in Egypt, in Kenya, a little in Tanzania, and so different aspects of the world. So there's that. And our maternal side is explored a lot, but sometimes a little too much and not enough at the paternal side. So I also have an issue where she kind of has a private reunion with her father, spirit of her father. And I always kind of like the whole father-daughter, mother-son, like the opposites gender kind of relationship when the parent-child dynamic. So there's that. So there are things I plan to explore through food. You can see it through food, like the dishes she makes and the clothing she wears and the way she speaks and the characters that she reunites with. In the second arc of this series, she's going to bring on Maggots, who is South African, be living with her in the Storm Sanctuary. It's something we're going to be playing around, but it's going to, they're going to be undertones. They're going to be undertones while we deal with these mega cosmic plots that we're going to be exploring. But it's going to be there. You are not going to see this character and not know she's African.
Okay. Well, that's great to know. It's you mentioned, it's funny, the Sanctuary. I wanted to get your take on some of the online discourse surrounding her home, because I've been, reading, and I know you've also been engaging with the fans that she has the Sanctuary. And there's a lot of discussion by the fans that, she wouldn't have something this ostentatious and whatever, because, she grew up very humble and, on the street, and she would feel it was very flashy. And then the other side of it is that, she's a goddess. She's been ruler of a nation. She's not going to be living in a studio apartment. And the purpose of the Sanctuary is, to be welcoming and open and stuff. So you have so many people that want to have their hot takes on it, and they want to, try and go viral or, call out like the gotcha moment or whatever like that. So I know, like I said, I've seen you engage in some of that stuff on social media, and I just wanted to get kind of your take on, if nothing else, they're passionate, that it shows you that they're engaged. So, what are some of your thoughts as the writer on that?
Allow me to be egotistical for a little moment. When Jonathan Hickman introduced the whole Krakoa concept, a lot of people were like, yeah, makes sense. This is basically Genosha. It's also, and Krakoa has been an island that took place in giant-sized X-Men. And people are like, oh, they are segregationists, they are fascists, this is against everything. So I'm happy there's conversation on this. So that means I'm in good company. So that's one. But to give my own honest opinion, number one, the shallow part of it, I love rich characters. There's this new counterculture that just started where we all suddenly hate rich people. And see, I want to be rich. I'm Nigerian. I want to be rich. Everything in my DNA is telling me I want to be rich. If there are evil rich people, fine. I will be one of the good ones. If you have not seen a good one, good, it's no problem. I will be an example. Storm will be an example. I don't care. I don't like why we like pretending. We like pretending a lot. We all keep saying, those rich guys, these rich guys are this and that and that. And you all keep going to work. Why are you going to work? For money. You want money.
Yeah, oh my.
We want this money. So why do we keep pretending?
Like Moon Knight, we got to get that bread.
We got to get that bread. And every character that has been rich, that originally from their inception that has been rich, every time they succumb to the complaints and they remove their wealth, their sales have dropped. So it's also to show that there's a difference between what people say and what people do. You've seen reality shows. How many reality shows star poor people? Look at TV shows, all those things,
Okay.
I'm talking shallowly now. I'm not even talking literally anything. There is the reason why we read comics and all those stuff. We don't have these powers. We don't have superpowers. We want to see people that have these powers and how they will use them responsibly. Money is also a power. We want to see people that can have money that we don't have and see how they use them responsibly. So that's part of the medium. That's part of the appeal of the medium. And I'm very, very willing to play into it. I want to see this character where I'm tired of just seeing characters wear t-shirts. I will see people saying Tony Stark is the richest guy and he will be wearing some very common t-shirts. And I'm like, no, These guys are billionaires. You know what these guys should be wearing? So we're going to be seeing that with Storm. She's going to be dressing like a queen. Like, this is money. Sorry, my Nigerian side is coming out. But
All right.
we're talking about money here. And
Okay.
we're going to see it. Now, that's the old shallow part. Now, the deep part. Our place is called the Sanctuary. And we're going to be playing with a lot of iconographies. Sanctuary is split into multiple folds. Number one is coming from the religious standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we're going to be treating Storm as a deity in this story. It's going to be called The Labors of Ororo Monroe. That's basically what we're calling this run, The Labors of Storm. So she's going to be treated like a deity. So this sanctuary is going to be seen as a temple. So you're going to see iconographies that are similar to things you will see in a temple. It's also a sanctuary where you keep a safe house, a shelter for human beings, for wildlife, for plants. She's keeping animals that are endangered. She's keeping them safe there. She's keeping plants that are endangered there. And during times of tribulation, during times of war, during times of natural disasters, this place will be open to people to dwell in safety. So all these things, these places have to be in tip-top shape. It can't be a dirty studio apartment like someone said. That's not where you're going to put people in. So, and she's going to be doing international, she's going to be on the global stage doing negotiations with international bodies. You're not going to be doing that. So, like some people said, if you are not going to complain about why Krakoa is luxurious, I don't see why you should be complaining why Storm Sanctuary is luxurious if they're going to be playing similar roles. In the fact that it's a sanctuary for people during times of trouble, and they're going to be doing proper international politics. So that's the plot significance of it as well. So yeah, it's not just there for their sake. It's playing a lot of significant roles, plot-wise, iconography, literature, and just to sell comics too. We like to see cool shit.
No argument here. And, it definitely is, an escapist medium. Yeah, to your point, folks want to see it because...
And luckily for us, we have hippos there, and hippos are at the trending animals right now.
Nice.
All right. So now we're going to get into some of the fan questions, and because I know this is running a little long, so I want to try and keep it short, but I want to get to some of the fan questions because there's some good stuff here. So we'll just kind of rapid fire them real fast. Antoine Dodson at World of Antoine asks, since they're working to heighten Storm's profile in the larger Marvel universe again, could we see any crossover stories or events centering around Storm in the future? I'm sure there's some stuff you may be privy to that we can't know, but I know Doom is Sorcerer Supreme. Doom is going to be Doom.
It's not even that, like an event centered around Storm. Let's hope we get more issues. There are plans. Yes,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Plans.
Fair enough. Butterfly Kiss asked, Aurora is slated in this run to be Earth's protector, which is pretty awesome. However, Gaia, I would presume, believes that title is more appropriate in describing her. Any chance the two will cross paths? And I had to look up on Marvel Fandom. I'm like, I never heard of Gaia. And I even responded on Twitter. I was like, that's a deep cut. She's from think Generation X from the 90s and hasn't made an appearance in forever.
I was even thinking it was Gaia, the one that said
Captain Planet is what I was thinking. I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a character that you're potentially familiar with, or if she is Earth powers and Earth's protector. Is there any chance we might see a resurgence of Gaia in this book?
Let's see. Storm is Earth's protector, but she's going to be doing more of protecting the universe and the Earth being more of our own base. Because I'm allowed to give this quote-unquote spoiler, but she's going to be facing Oblivion. And Oblivion is the end of all things, not just our planet.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then referencing that, another question we had, this person on Twitter, their name is Aurora Monroe, and at Storm and then a bunch of numbers asks, in relation to this image, and they attached an image of a spear, can we associate that the spear is made of light, not a simple light, but rather a light linked to the divine light? the light of the one above all. After all, she will face oblivion.
It's linked to the light of a particular cosmic entity, but not one above all. We would know that cosmic entity in Storm 1 in the last page.
Okay.
But we won't see that here until issue 4.
Oh, okay. All right. Very, very cool. Sorcerer Supreme at Mystical Me 337 asks, admittedly, I've asked you this before, but if you had to have Aurora team up with Doctor Strange, what dynamic would you have for them?
Yeah, so I love Doctor Strange. I keep pairing Doctor Strange with Iron Man, but when it comes to Storm, I like the way Voodoo's all green, all mysticism pairs up with our blue lightning and stuff. But if it's going to be, the dynamic might be closer to the way Voodoo's, which we see in Storm 2. And it's almost the dynamic of disappointment, where Ororo Monroe shares blood with Agamotto, the first Sorcerer Supreme. She's basically Sorcerer Supreme Royale. And she can barely cast a spell. So most Sorcerer Supremes will look at her and be like, dude, like, what a shame. You know, that's that kind of dynamic I see.
Okay. Kimmy at Celine Gallio 616 asked, what's been the best part in imagining what Aurora's story after Krakoa would be, and what's the biggest inspiration for her fashion sense?
Let me start with the fashion sense. I don't know. Number one, it helps that Lucas Werneck is working with you. So I'm picking up on a lot of Lucas Werneck stuff. I'm always going through Pinterest, like, as an habit. My best friend is also an artist. So we're always like talking about stuff. Anytime I see something cool on the internet, I'm like, oh yeah, this is something Storm would wear. Sometimes he would say like, oh yeah, Storm would wear this, saying this and stuff like that. So always checking Instagram, a lot of visual stuff, just constantly scrolling through stuff. So there isn't like one particular source, but like you said, it's also a lot of African fashion stuff. Trying to look at how Africans would dress, so especially head wraps. I'm bringing back a lot of head wraps because I saw that it was something she was always wearing during Chris Claremont's era, and I'm bringing it back because it's a very African thing. So she's going to bring a lot of head wraps in this run. But the fun part of writing our posts Krakoan era, yeah, that was very difficult. I pitched, I think, about 4 episodes already. And some people was like, okay. And then I pitched issue 5. And some people was like, yes, this issue 5, make it issue 1. This is your story. And Dr. Akonde, my friend, also raised like, yes, this issue 5 is your story. So basically, I have like 4 stories that we had to throw away before we had this issue 1 that you're about to read come October. So it was really difficult because Lewin did like a big job there, and you don't want to seem like you're going back instead of pushing the character forward. You're not like resetting the character, and at the same time you want to make your story a good jumping on point, and you don't want to also reset the character. So it was really, 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 really difficult. But what really opened it up for me was a story by Dwayne McDuffie in Fantastic Four, where Doctor Strange did not know. Doctor Strange wanted to help out Eternity, and he needed to transport Eternity somewhere temporarily. And there were only 2 people that can house Eternity, Doctor Strange or Storm. Those are the only 2 people. So he had to move Eternity into Storm's consciousness temporarily, to be able to do the little fix and then back. And just that little thing that happened there, just that little thing is a big inspiration for this run, because I'm about to play with that concept. Why is Storm the only other person that can house Eternity? And that's basically the big question. So, and that was what unlocked it. And that take is very, very different from what Alwyn was coming from. So I was like, yes, I finally have something like that is different and that's interesting. And it's something that is closer to my sensibilities. And I think Alwyn's story was also closer to, which you could see more in what Marvel was even saying to promote this book about, the mutants still have a queen, still about leadership and stuff. And I was coming with, I'm here to tell the story of a goddess. So, and that's the big story. That's the difference. So,
Okay.
So yeah,
very cool.
So from queen to goddess. So yeah.
All right. Jug asks, is there going to be any chance of Storm seeing her grandparents again?
No, I don't have any such plans yet.
Okay. All right. Last fan question. Skybreaker at DSolomon83 asks, any armoring in the new suit, bulletproofing, knife proofing, laser proofing, etc.?
I play around with that in issue 1 of Storm. I kind of proved to the audience that as bad as her Storm is, she isn't like bulletproof or anything. Like, you could basically knife Storm and it would hurt her compared to like other characters. I needed to remind people of those weaknesses so that as we move forward with the story, as we do the whole elevation, you would see that power crawl that we tend to love so much in our stories. So to get to that point, yes, we're going to see Storm in forms where she will, quote unquote, be bulletproof. So far, as the time we're recording this video, we've already reviewed 2 costumes. She's going to be wearing a black and gold costume. She's going to be wearing a white and gold costume. And we've seen the designs for that. But the ones we've not seen the designs for, she's going to be wearing an armor. She's going to be wearing an armor. And she's going to be wearing a cosmic infused costume. So,
ooh, okay.
So a cosmic infused costume is going to definitely be bulletproof,
Nice.
Yeah, all right. All right, we're going to wrap things up here. Thank you so much, Murewa. Where can people find you on social media?
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, but it's usually better to find me on Twitter so that I can answer your questions, give you feedback easily, because that's where I'm usually on. So on X/Twitter, you can find me at Ayodele Murewa.
All right. And like I said, this episode will be coming out, the same day that Storm #1 drops. So go out to the comic shop and pick that up. And then, while you're there, ask your comic shop for the pre-order of Akogun, Brutalizer of Gods, coming out from Oni Press in early 2025. Thank you so much. We sincerely appreciate it. This is a fantastic creator interview. Very insightful. Again, love reading all the stuff that we were able to get our hands on so far. And definitely, from a non-X fan, I am very intrigued at adding this to my poll list. Doc, anything else you want to touch on before we...
This is rare for me when it comes to podcasts. I actually don't have anything witty or pun-like to say, because seriously, you brought the heat, man. It's obvious that you enjoy this, that you have a passion for this, and it comes through in the stories. And I really appreciate everything that you do, and I know you're going to continue to do. So thank you so much for even honoring us with the time.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for having me. It was really fun talking with you. And it's high praise to hear, like, as a non-X person, being interested in this book. It's really high praise. Thank you.
Definitely. So you can follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Threads at Capes on the Couch. All of our episodes are available on our website, capesonthecouch.com. You can shoot us an email with any questions you have at capesonthecouch@gmail.com. And all the links and everything will be in the show notes for this one. So thank you once again for Murewa Ayodele and my amazing co-host, Doc Issues. I'm Anthony Sitko. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.